Sri Ramakrishna, the Lord of all. It's the outskirts of the village, full of bushes and shrubs, and dotted with tall trees. Along the curved path, someone appears to be walking, but hiding himself from time to time. In his hand is a garland of wild flowers. In his other hand are a few wild flowers and sweets prepared at home. Chinu Shankari cannot keep himself back anymore. He has been observing since quite some days that the lad of his own village, Gadai, moves about amongst these shrubs. But to Chinu Shankari, he appears not as Gadai, but as the boy Krishna. How many days has he not tried to touch him, to embrace him? But Gadadhar, that is Gadai, is Khudiram's son from a traditional Brahmin family. How can poor Chinu of Kamarpukur touch him? So he restrained his emotions as much as he could. At times, when his emotions overwhelmed him, when his yearning grew terribly, fear overpowered both his emotion and yearning and disarmed him. Here, Chinu sees Gadai. Ah, Gadai comes there, walking slowly. Chinu experiences horripilation. His hands shake for emotion. With shaking hands, he places the wildflower garland around Gadai's neck, and with great love, he feeds him the sweets he has brought. He embraces not Gadai, but his chosen deity. Lest he should run away, Chinu Shankari holds Gadai's hand with his own. He forgets that his hands are rough and that they may hurt Gadai. Chinu Shankari has touched his beloved Lord. It is not that Chinu alone had the blessed touch and grace of Sri Ramakrishna. Many others of the village also had this. The young and old of Kamarpukur all experienced this. In Kamarpukur, Gadadhar, a young boy then, would daily come to where there would be singing or reading from scriptures in the evening. He would thrill the audience with his own commentaries and music. He could dance beautifully as well. He would steal all minds with his melodious songs sung in a heavenly voice. He would create stories and entertain others. So, everyone would wait for him every evening. He was everyone's dear Gadadhar. Schoolboys would experience immense pleasure in viewing him act the various parts with friends at the local Manik Raja's mango grove. Imagine the scene. As a little boy, Gadadhar is going with the village women to visit Vishalakshi of Anur. Old and venerable Prasannamai is with them. On the way, singing Divine Mother's songs makes Gadadhar lose his outer consciousness. Those ladies do not know what to do. Suddenly, under the leadership of Prasannamai, they begin praying to Gadadhar, thinking of him as the Divine Mother. O Mother Vishalakshi, be compassionate. Protect us, O Mother, Mother Vishalakshi, look at us, show us the way. Gadadhar wakes up. To Prasannamai, Gadadhar was really Thakur, the Lord. After his great many austerities and sadhanas at Dakshineshwar, Gadadhar has come to his village, Kamarpukur. Already there's news in the air that he is mad. But the villagers see in him their same Gadadhar, but in Sri Ramakrishna form, a lover of frolic and fun, a lover of drama and songs. Neighboring women have come to meet him. He discusses God with them. During the course of discussion, he goes into an ecstatic mood. Seeing his form then, the ladies think he is like a fish swimming in the ocean of Sachidananda. Sri Ramakrishna is their only Lord of love. A Brahmin lady stays in a small hut on the banks of the Ganges in the precincts of a temple. She bathes in the Ganges, does some work in the temple, and worships Gopala every day. A small image of Gopala is there with her. Whatever little she cooks for herself, she offers to her Gopala and partakes of it as prasada. Gradually, this Brahmin lady sees that her Gopala is not confined anymore to that metal image. He eats everything even before she offers them to him. He plays pranks, demands affection. The Brahmin lady goes to Dakshineshwar to Sri Ramakrishna's room with her Gopala in her arms. Gopala sits on the lap of his mother, that is, on the Brahmin lady's lap, his head on her shoulders, his face touching her chin, and his little red feet dangling on her waist. This Brahmin lady is Gopalirma. Though her name was Aghormani Devi, she came to be known as Gopala's mother. When Gopalirma enters Sri Ramakrishna's room in this state, she sees him waiting for her eagerly in the posture of Gopala. Ramakrishna has become Gopala. Gopala in her arms and Gopala there in Ramakrishna become one. Sri Ramakrishna himself is Gopalirma's Gopala. Some time earlier, Sri Ramakrishna is still Gadadhar then. Young Gadadhar is a friend and a source of tremendous attraction for the men and women of Kamarpukur, and there is a deep bond of love between them. The women of the Pine family feel restless if they don't see Gadadhar even for a day. The elderly ladies of the Dharmadas Laha family, like Prasannamai, look upon Gadadhar as Sri Krishna himself. It is he that attracts them. So Gadadhar is their Lord, their Krishna then. Mathur Babu, Mathuranath Bishwas, the son-in-law of Rani Rashmani, is walking on the veranda of the office building and sees Sri Ramakrishna walking on the veranda of his own room. Mathur notices something stunning. When Ramakrishna turns to one side, he appears as Mother Kali to Mathur, and if he turns to the other, he appears as Shiva. Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of Mathur. The founder of the Dakshineshwar Kali temple and the landlady of Sri Ramakrishna, Rani Rashmani, comes to Bhavatarini temple occasionally. She observes Sri Ramakrishna's ecstatic worship. She realizes that by Ramakrishna's worship, the goddess will awaken soon. She orders the temple workers not to disturb Ramakrishna's puja in any way. Rashmani also listens to Sri Ramakrishna's melodious singing with rapturous attention. One day, she is listening to his songs. Suddenly, Sri Ramakrishna chides her sternly and even slaps her on the cheek. Stunned and taken aback, Rani introspects and discovers her mental condition then. She had been thinking of some lawsuit. She understands her folly. She orders the temple workers who have begun to create a commotion not to do anything to Ramakrishna. Thus, Rani Rashmani had seen an embodiment of supreme love and God intoxication in Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna's uncle's son, Ram Tarak, has come to Dakshineshwar. Ramakrishna himself had given him the name Haladhari. Haladhari is a Pandit, sincere aspirant and well versed in the scriptures. He has become engaged in the worship of the Divine Mother upon the insistence of Mathuranath. Those are the great days of Sri Ramakrishna's spiritual aspiration. Ramakrishna is mad for God. Haladhari does not like his behavior. Whatever comes to his mind, that he says to Ramakrishna. However, all on a sudden, Haladhari would also become enamored with the Master's ecstasies, divine inebriation, tremendous aspiration for God, etc. He is in a fix. What is he to decide about Ramakrishna? Sometimes he sees the manifestation of divinity in the Master, while at other times he notices peculiar behavior. Haladhari calls the Divine Mother Bhavatarini as Tamasi, but when Ramakrishna touches him, he sees her as an embodiment of pure consciousness, as the personification of the three qualities, Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. Along with that, he also sees the Lord himself in Sri Ramakrishna. He offers flowers, sandal paste, etc. at the Master's feet with intense devotion. And the Master too has acknowledged his service with gratitude, especially during his sadhana period. Had it not been for Hriday, Ramakrishna's life would have been in danger. But Hriday also troubles the Master. Ramakrishna tolerated him much, but he couldn't tolerate extremes, so Hriday had to leave subsequently. Once, Hriday pestered Sri Ramakrishna for Bhava Samadhi. Ramakrishna initially said no. He added that through service itself can Hriday attain everything. But since Hriday wouldn't leave him in peace, he prayed to the Divine Mother for Hriday's spiritual experience. It happened. In that state, Hriday saw Ramakrishna not as a human being in flesh and blood, but as adorning a divine body of light and as God himself. So, Ramakrishna was the Lord to his own people also. Those are the days of intense spiritual sadhana of Sri Ramakrishna. He is being guided by Bhairavi Brahmani, the expert in Tantra and Vaishnava scriptures. Numerous spiritual signs begin to manifest themselves in the Master's holy person. To Mathur and others, these are only illnesses. But Bhairavi Brahmani has been saying since the very beginning that these are divine states approved by the scriptures. To examine all this, a conference has been arranged and a small group of Pandits have assembled at Dakshineshwar. Amongst the other Pandits who have been invited to this assembly, the great Vaishnava Charan, a doyen of Vaishnava sadhana from Kolkata, and Gauri Pandit, the master of Tantra from Indus, Bankura district, Bengal, are the two luminaries. Bhairavi Brahmani places her views about Sri Ramakrishna's state of supreme spirituality before the assembly in no uncertain terms. She invites the assembly to challenge her. The great aspirant cum Pandit, Vaishnava Charan, had recognized Sri Ramakrishna as a great spiritual luminary at his very first meeting itself with him. So he does not rest contented by accepting what Brahmani said. He declares that in Sri Ramakrishna's holy person are clearly visible all the 19 signs of the supreme state of Mahabhava mentioned in Bhakti scriptures. Vaishnava Charan has developed devotion and faith in Sri Ramakrishna. Instead of judging Ramakrishna, he confides his own personal sadhana before him and asks his advice. On another occasion, he also takes Ramakrishna to the place where his sect, the Karta Bhaja, practiced sadhana, examines the master there and declares that Sri Ramakrishna is a perfect Sahaja. To him, Sri Ramakrishna is an avatar. He announces this before public also. The great Tantra adept, Gauri Pandit, is well known in the Tantric circles as invincible due to the supernatural powers he has acquired. When he enters the temple precincts, Sri Ramakrishna defeats him in a voice contest and takes away his powers. In losing his powers, Gauri Pandit accepts Sri Ramakrishna's superiority. Ramakrishna does that only for Gauri's good. Gauri Pandit agrees with what Vaishnava Charan says. He too sees through his tapasya-bred subtle eye that Sri Ramakrishna is a gigantic personality. Going one step further than Vaishnava Charan, Gauri says to Sri Ramakrishna, "You are that supreme power, out of a part of which avatars come from time to time to do good to the world, and by the help of which power they succeed in their tasks." It so happens that Gauri stays back in the holy precincts of Dakshineshwar in the holy company of Sri Ramakrishna for some months. Finally, he seeks Ramakrishna's blessings for success in the path of God realization, as if praying to one's own Guru. Hearing about the facilities for monks to stay at Dakshineshwar, Narayana Shastri from Rajasthan, a master of the 6 systems of Indian philosophy, has come to stay there for some time. He gets introduced to Sri Ramakrishna. Time is spent in spiritual talks and discussions. Love and devotion too begin to grow in Narayana Shastri's heart. Shastri observes the Nirvikalpa Samadhi of Vedanta actualized in Sri Ramakrishna. He also sees that the very mention of the words Samadhi, direct experience, etc. transports Sri Ramakrishna to the spiritual realm. He had struggled all these years only to study and memorize these truths. The pride of being a great Pandit leaves Shastri in no time. He realizes that he must obtain the key to Brahman realization from Sri Ramakrishna. He places his mind before Ramakrishna at the opportune moment. He also pesters him for the vows of sannyasa. Since Shastri will not let him go, Sri Ramakrishna bestows on him the vows of sannyasa and thereby becomes his monastic teacher. The court Pandit of the king of Burdwan, Padmalochan, has come to Aryadaha, Kolkata. Hearing this, Sri Ramakrishna at once starts with Hriday to meet him. His first meeting with Ramakrishna tells Padmalochan that the former is an astronomical spiritual personality. After this, both meet on several occasions. During one such meeting, Sri Ramakrishna, upon the instructions of the Divine Mother, takes away the miraculous powers of Padmalochan. Padmalochan's eyes open that day, and to him, Sri Ramakrishna becomes an avatar. Later, when Mathur organizes the assembly of the Pandits at Dakshineshwar, which we have mentioned above, Ramakrishna invites Padmalochan also to come. Padmalochan remarks in gratitude, "I am ready to come even to a place of ill fame if you say so, and eat there." This is how Sri Ramakrishna blessed those who came to him. Accompanied by Mathur, Ramakrishna visited Bhagavan Das Babaji, the great Vaishnava saint of Kalna, at his ashrama. Hriday too was with him. Sri Ramakrishna had gone there the moment he heard about Babaji. This Babaji was considered to be the topmost spiritual leader of the Vaishnavas. His words were supreme to them. Babaji had heard about Sri Ramakrishna. Once, Sri Ramakrishna had been to Harisabha at Kolutola in Kolkata, where he had taken the seat reserved in the name and in honor of Chaitanya in a state of ecstasy. Babaji had heard this incident and was angry. When Sri Ramakrishna went to Babaji, he had covered himself fully with a cloth and with utmost humility sat along with others to listen to the discourse on Vaishnava faith being delivered by Babaji. Babaji had some spiritual powers and so had realized that some great soul had come there that day. When Ramakrishna heard Babaji repeatedly admonish someone, scold another, and say, "I will expel him, I will teach people," etc. during his discourse, he stood up and pointed out his mistake to him. Since Babaji was no ordinary soul, but an aspirant of a high order, he could understand the spirit of Sri Ramakrishna's admonitions. His awakened spiritual consciousness made him humble. He saw an extraordinary spiritual light in Sri Ramakrishna. He realized that the Master was a divine personality. He prostrated before him and apologized to him for having spoken harshly about the incident related to Sri Chaitanya's seat. Babaji saw in Sri Ramakrishna his own chosen deity, Sri Chaitanya. Thus, Sri Ramakrishna proved to be the lord of learned aspirants also. Sri Ramakrishna was the lord of his own teachers also. An aspirant of a tall order, Bhairavi Brahmani, had seen in Sri Ramakrishna her own chosen ideal, Raghuvira, living and vibrant. Immediately thereafter, she had immersed her long-worshipped Raghuvira image. She believed firmly that this time Chaitanya had incarnated in Nityananda's body. It was she who, for the first time, declared in front of everyone that Sri Ramakrishna was an incarnation of God. But Bhairavi was against Advaita sadhana. She had realized by the grace of Sri Ramakrishna that her sadhana had been incomplete, so she left Dakshineshwar in order to bring fulfillment to her sadhana. Sri Ramakrishna's Vedanta teacher, Totapuri, had practiced sadhana for 40 long years and had attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi. Having been initiated by Totapuri, Sri Ramakrishna attained the same state in just 3 days. Totapuri was astounded. He stayed over at Dakshineshwar for 11 months, a monk who had never stayed so long anywhere. He had never believed in Shakti. He did not know much about Bhakti too. But due to Sri Ramakrishna's miracle and due to the grace of the Divine Mother, Totapuri accepted Shakti at a crucial moment when he had gone to drown himself in the Ganges, unable to bear the pain due to an ailment. The monk belonging to the Ramayat sect, Jatadhari, was not having uninterrupted vision of his chosen ideal. He would see his Rama only occasionally. When his sadhana became deeper, the visions too became a little more frequent. It was at this stage that he visited Dakshineshwar. Sri Ramakrishna got initiated from him into the Rama mantra. Owing to his proximity to Sri Ramakrishna, Jatadhari began to have unimpeded vision of Ram Lala. He handed over his dearest image of Ram Lala to the Master. Ramakrishna thus helped his own teachers to attain perfection and became their Lord. Keshav Chandra Sen was the leader of the Brahmo Samaj and a famous lecturer. He had gone to England and received Queen Victoria's hospitality. He was introduced there as the Christ of the East. Such a Keshav became close to Sri Ramakrishna. The Master had himself gone to see Keshav, as he had heard that Keshav thought of God. From then on, both met each other for about 19 times. Keshav would drink the nectarine words of Sri Ramakrishna, sitting quietly before him with avidity. Keshav, who was a believer in the formless aspect of God and a follower of the Navabidhan Brahmo Samaj, began to accept Mother Kali. Keshav introduced Sri Ramakrishna to the literary world through his articles in Mirror, Dharma Tattva, Sulabh Samachar, New Dispensation, etc. Just as Sri Ramakrishna visited Lily Cottage, Keshav's house, Keshav too visited Sri Ramakrishna with his entourage. Again, Sri Ramakrishna frequented other congregations also of the Brahmo Samaj. So, if we say Sri Ramakrishna was the Lord of Keshav and the Lord of the Brahmo Samaj also, would it be an exaggeration? Keshav had offered flowers at Ramakrishna's feet. When Sri Ramakrishna came to know that Keshav was very ill, he was extremely worried. He prayed to the Divine Mother fervently for Keshav. Ramakrishna had also vowed green coconut and sugar in Keshav's name. Both when the Master was in the mood of the spiritual teacher at Dakshineshwar and when he was on his sick bed at Kashipur Garden House, many of his dear disciples and others had had the vision of their chosen deities in him. Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of them all. Abdul Wajid the Muslim, William the Christian, and others have all had the visions of their chosen ideals in Sri Ramakrishna. About such blossoming of Ramakrishna in the hearts of many aspirants who belonged to different groups and sects, we are reminded of Swami Sharadanandaji's words. The compassionate Master received as his own almost all those who came to him and did not part company with them even if they tried to do so. He endowed them with eternal peace by erasing, now by drastic methods, now with a gentle smile, the impressions accumulated by them in their past lives and by casting them anew into new forms after the unique and attractive pattern set by him. He looked upon those who loved God, irrespective of what community they belonged to, as very closely related to him and helped them unstintedly in their spiritual quest so that they might attain perfection by proceeding along their own paths. Again, the Master always said that all the true devotees of God were a class by themselves and never hesitated to eat and drink with them. His wife Sharadamani Devi saw the Divine Mother in Sri Ramakrishna. Taraknath, later Swami Shivananda, would address Sri Ramakrishna as Mother. Many more had so many inner experiences which were not expressed. About Sri Ramakrishna's being the Lord of Swami Vivekananda, there is no doubt at all. Dr. Mahendralal Sarkar treated Sri Ramakrishna's throat cancer with homeopathic medicines. He was a famous MD of those days, the founder of the Science Association in Kolkata and the publisher of the Medical Science Journal. Such a person with a scientific bent of mind had come to Sri Ramakrishna to treat him. But Dr. Sarkar became a transformed individual upon meeting Sri Ramakrishna and discussing with him. It so happened that Dr. Sarkar would hear Sri Ramakrishna's words for hours at a stretch. He would spend his nights in the thought of the Master. He was incurring a loss in business, but still he would ignore his work and run to Ramakrishna. He experienced ecstasy listening to devotional songs. Thus, Dr. Sarkar gave a scientific approval to the spiritual moods of Ramakrishna and his devotees. He remarked about Ramakrishna, "As a man, I have the greatest regard for him." Coming to remove the ailment of Sri Ramakrishna, Dr. Sarkar was himself caught in the net of Sri Ramakrishna's love. Not only he, but the other doctors like Rajendra Datta, Bhagavan Das Rudra, Rakhal, and doctors from other disciplines like Durgacharan, Bhaduri, Pratap, Madhusudan, Srinath, etc. too were impressed by Sri Ramakrishna. If Sri Ramakrishna was not the Lord of doctors also, would they all get caught like this? Adhar Lal Sen was a deputy magistrate and a devotee of Sri Ramakrishna. Occasionally, Adhar would invite Ramakrishna and his devotees to his house and entertain them. To one such function, Adhar had invited a few of his deputy magistrate friends. Amongst them was Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, a virtuoso of Bengali literature. This literator went on asking questions in his literary style to Sri Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna replied all the questions in his characteristically simple way, using illustrations and giving out extraordinary spiritual truths. There were arrangements for Kirtan also that day. While listening to Kirtan, Sri Ramakrishna entered into Samadhi. Bankim looked at this state with awe. Next, Ramakrishna began dancing in ecstasy. The English-educated Bankim was still more wonderstruck. The master also sang in his heavenly voice. While returning home, Bankim saluted Ramakrishna. He invited the master from the core of his heart to visit his house also. Sri Ramakrishna thus became the Lord of Bankim, who melted in just a single day. Sri Ramakrishna was going on a pilgrimage with Mathur. They reached Vaidyanath Dham in Devghar. There, Sri Ramakrishna saw the suffering and misery-worn faces of the villagers. They had nothing to eat. They didn't have clothes to wear. Ramakrishna asked Mathur to feed and clothe them. Mathur said no, for that would mean a lot of expenditure, and they were on a pilgrimage. Sri Ramakrishna said he would not go any further on pilgrimage. He sat down amidst those hapless villagers. Seeing no other way, Mathur had clothes and other items brought from Kolkata and distributed them, thus fulfilling the master's wishes. In a similar incident, Sri Ramakrishna had made Mathur waive taxes levied on the poor villagers of Kalai Ghat of Ranaghat district. The Kalai Ghat villagers were Mathur's tenants. Didn't Sri Ramakrishna become the Lord of the poor people of Devghar and Kalai Ghat in this way? Is he not the Lord of the poor? A poor Brahmin lived near the bridge at Bagbazar, Kolkata. His name was Dinanath Mukhopadhyay. He was a devotee and repeated God's names. Sri Ramakrishna heard his name. He told Mathur to take him to his house. So Mathur took Sri Ramakrishna in a vehicle to Dinanath's house. That day happened to be a special day. Dinanath's son was being invested with a sacred thread. Dinanath was shocked to see such a big man, Mathur, come to his small house and was in a fix as to where he would make them sit, etc. Sri Ramakrishna spoke to Dinanath and returned to Dakshineshwar. Sri Ramakrishna was the Lord of the poor, so he had begged Mathur to take him to Dinanath's house and had gone there too. Rasik was the sweeper of Dakshineshwar. He would see many people visiting Sri Ramakrishna. Kirtan and singing would be going on day and night. Day after day, he would observe from a distance how Sri Ramakrishna's room would be filled with divine discussions and moods. But Rasik would feel a secret pain in his heart. He was not fortunate enough to have the blessings of Ramakrishna or to touch his holy feet. One day, Sri Ramakrishna was returning from the grove to his room. When he came near Nahavat, Rasik fell flat at his feet in prostration and in a pitiful voice opened his heart before Sri Ramakrishna. What will happen to me? Taken by surprise, Ramakrishna instantly went into Samadhi. Tears were running down Rasik's eyes. Coming down from Samadhi, Ramakrishna consoled Rasik and said, "Everything is okay with you." He also said that he would bless Rasik during his last moments. Rasik was blessed. Indeed, Rasik had the darshan of Ramakrishna during the last moments of his life. Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of the so-called untouchables too. The Master was going by boat to Kamarpukur. Holy Mother and Hriday were accompanying him. The boat had halted at a village called Diwanganj. From there, they had to walk over to Kamarpukur. Oh, for fate! Thick clouds were covering the sky. It started raining too, and evening had approached. Hriday went into the village to find out some suitable place for their stay. Diwanganj was a village where many rich people lived. Amongst them was a devotee by name Modak, who had built a new house. His desire had been that some noble soul should come and stay at his house for 3 nights. When Hriday went in search of a shelter, Modak heard everything from him and, with immense gladness, invited them to stay in his house. Modak entertained the party with the best things available in his village and served them wholeheartedly. Owing to incessant rains for the next 2 days, Sri Ramakrishna had to stay at his house itself for 2 more nights. Modak's desire too was fulfilled, and he served the group with all his heart. To Modak, Sri Ramakrishna became the fulfiller of the devotee's wishes, the lover of the devotee, the soul of the devotee, and the Lord who listens to his devotees. Sri Ramakrishna was the Lord of Dhani Kamarini, his alms mother. Ignoring all social norms, the Brahmin boy Gadai had accepted the low-caste Kamarini as his alms mother. He would forcibly eat what Kamarini would cook. Dhani's sister, Shankari Kamarini, had nurtured a secret desire to cook for Gadadhar. Sri Ramakrishna had fulfilled her desire too. When Sri Ramakrishna was born, the lady who acted as the midwife was Dhatri Bhairavi. She was from a low caste. Didn't Dhani Shankari, Dhatri Bhairavi, and others see their respective chosen deities in Ramakrishna? Hanuman Singh was the gatekeeper of the Dakshineshwar temple. He worshipped Mahavira and was devoted to Sri Ramakrishna. One time, a Punjabi wrestler had come to Dakshineshwar in search of the gatekeeper's job. He was a well-built person. Mathuranath put a condition. If the Punjabi defeated Hanuman Singh in wrestling, he would get the gatekeeper's job. The day for the competition was fixed. The Punjabi wrestler would do a lot of exercise and eat good food to keep himself fit. Hanuman Singh, on the other hand, would eat only 1 meal a day and repeat the mantra. Sri Ramakrishna did not fail to notice all this. He loved Hanuman Singh. He inquired of Hanuman about the possible results of the competition. Hanuman Singh replied, "By your grace I shall certainly win." And he did win. Sri Ramakrishna became Hanuman Singh's chosen deity. Not only Hanuman Singh, but the gatekeeper of Jadu Malik's house and Kewa Singh, the Sikh soldier, had also looked upon Sri Ramakrishna as their chosen ideals. Girish Chandra Ghosh, the great dramatist, was a famous person. His Chaitanya Leela was being enacted at the Star Theatre in Beadon Street, Kolkata. Girish had not yet come in contact with Sri Ramakrishna. One day, Sri Ramakrishna arrived with his entourage to see Chaitanya Leela. Binodini, the famous actress of those days, was performing the role of Chaitanya. While seeing the drama performed by different actors and actresses, Sri Ramakrishna found that the real and the virtual were one and the same. He blessed Binodini. "May your spiritual consciousness be awakened." Since then, actresses of theatres who were known as women of ill fame acquired a status in society. Sri Ramakrishna had also witnessed Prahlada Charitra, Vrishaketu, Nimai Sannyas and Daksha Yajna subsequently. From the moment he entered the theatre, Sri Ramakrishna became the chosen ideal and lord of the Bengali theatre. His picture is placed in all theatres, and to salute him before the beginning of a drama has become a custom since then. The Master had not only blessed Binodini that day, but, through her, all the actors and actresses of the past, present and future. Sri Ramakrishna became the Lord of the Bengali theatre. Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of Girish Ghosh. Their mutual relationship is unique. Sri Ramakrishna did not dissuade Girish from doing anything anytime. He would say that Girish would overcome them all. So had Girish accepted Sri Ramakrishna as his supreme and only support. Boozed up heavily, Girish presented himself one day at Dakshineshwar, having travelled by a horse-drawn cart. He forgot his bottle in the vehicle itself. Sri Ramakrishna sent his attendant Latu for the bottle. Girish came once again that night with his friend, unable to resist the attraction of Sri Ramakrishna. Hearing Girish's voice, Sri Ramakrishna came out of his room and soon began to dance, holding the hand of the inebriated Girish. Girish's mind melted, experiencing his loving touch. Girish said in later days, "He loved me like I do myself. I never had a true friend, but he was my dearest friend because he transformed my drawbacks into qualities. He loved me more than myself." Girish had wished that Ramakrishna should take birth as his son. When the master disagreed, Girish became terribly angry and began to hurl insults at him in the foulest of languages. Sri Ramakrishna did not say a word against all this. The other devotees present there felt pained. When this issue was raised the next day at Dakshineshwar, the devotee Ramchandra Datta remarked that everything about Girish was poison, and so where could nectar come from? The moment Sri Ramakrishna heard this, he rushed to Girish in a vehicle. Seeing him, Girish remarked, "I understood today. You are that," meaning God. "You are that." At the Kashipur garden house, Sri Ramakrishna could not rise up from his bed. Girish came. Ramakrishna asked Latu to arrange for a smoke for Girish. He also had some eatables brought from a nearby shop and fed Girish with them. He rose from his bed and supplied a glass of water to him from a pitcher. At Shyampakur, when Divine Mother Kali was manifested in Sri Ramakrishna's body, Girish was the first to offer flowers at his feet. At the Kashipur garden house, when Sri Ramakrishna became a wish-fulfilling tree, it was Girish who placed himself ahead of others. To a question from the master, Girish had replied, "What more can I say of him, whose greatness Vyasa and Valmiki could not find words to express?" Girish had such faith that by feeding on the pus-filled blood oozing out of Sri Ramakrishna's throat, ants and insects would become liberated. Girish was eager to sell the bricks of his house in order to serve Sri Ramakrishna. Swami Sunirmalananda has rightly written that Sri Ramakrishna was a unique personality because those very persons whom we despise as bad and ignoble and not worth seeing even would awaken divine consciousness in his mind, and he would go into samadhi. So, Sri Ramakrishna is really everyone's Lord. Just as Shambhu the potter, Madhujogi, Chanda Oza and others had come into contact with him and had tasted his love. The gardener at Dakshineshwar, the cook Ishwar Chatterjee, the cook at Kashipur garden house, Ganguly, Fagu, the sweetmeat maker, Beni Saha, the rickshaw puller, and others too, received his grace. The dacoit Bagdi couple from Telobhelo, who had seen Mother Kali in Holy Mother, got transformed by their contact with Ramakrishna. Women of ill fame, Lakshmi Bai and Ramani, had seen a divine person in Ramakrishna. Similarly, Sri Ramakrishna had become the god of the Christian monk Prabhu Dayal Mishra, Reverend Joseph Cook, and others. The unlettered lad Chinu Shankari, the Brahmanical tradition-bound widow Gopaler Ma, the powerful, given to luxury landlord Mathura Mohan, the drunkard actor Girish, the all-renouncing monks like Vivekananda, Brahmananda, Shivananda, and the greatest, none other than Holy Mother Sharada Devi herself, all had recognized the Master as the Supreme God. Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of all. Therefore he practiced many tantras, many mantras, and did many sadhanas, and therefore he had so many types of visions. He had seen Sita in a brilliant form come and disappear into his divine person. He had seen the slightly blunt-nosed Christ come before him and merge with him. During a pilgrimage, he saw two divine children come out of his own person, play for some time and merge once again with him. They were Chaitanya and Nityananda. He had seen Radha. She too had merged into him. In this way, the gods of the whole of humanity appeared before Sri Ramakrishna in innumerable forms and names and merged into him. Sri Ramakrishna is thus the sweet mingling of all the gods. So he became the Lord of all. Thus, Sri Ramakrishna is the God of all. During his sadhana, Sri Ramakrishna followed the principles of each particular path meticulously and attained the goal of that path. He never mixed up all the faiths and found a new faith. He did not change the paths to the God and create a new path. Sri Ramakrishna accepted the differences and specialities in all the paths and faiths. However, one has to accept one particular faith or path in life and continue the struggle. Then only can one have the realization of God. Sri Ramakrishna traversed through each single path, attained the particular goal of that path, and finally reached the eternal truth, which is the end of all paths, which is beyond all the paths and goals. Sri Ramakrishna's religious harmony is not a union of the diverse routes to God, nor is it their renovation. Sri Ramakrishna's harmony is the foundation or basis of all religions, the central point of contact for all faiths, but it is not the monopoly of any particular faith or religion. Sri Ramakrishna's religion is all-enveloping, all-encompassing, universal, unparalleled. Therefore, anyone who is struggling sincerely along his or her own spiritual path will finally reach God, the supreme end, and reach Sri Ramakrishna alone, as Sri Ramakrishna appears himself before the aspirants as their own Lord according to their paths and faiths. So, Sri Ramakrishna is the Lord of all. Before the birth of Gadadhar, how many visions and experiences his parents had. While in Gaya, Chudiram had a dream which was more real than the waking state experience. Narayana himself had appeared before him and said that he would come as his and Chandramani's son to the earth. Chandramani, Ramakrishna's mother, saw a flood of light coming out of the Jogi Shiva temple and engulfing her. She would have so many divine visions, and whichever god came would merge into her holy person. That same Lord of all would appear before her in different images and once again become one with the source. Chandramani wore a divine pleasantness on her face. Her face shone brilliantly. And finally, the Lord of all took birth in the form of Gadadhar at her house. There is no count of how many people Sri Ramakrishna met in life. In his book, Sri Ramakrishna Samsparshe, Sri Nirmal Kumar Roy has given some information of at least 600 such people. In the authoritative works like the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Ramakrishna the Great Master, and a portrait of Sri Ramakrishna, we get authentic evidence about the people who met Sri Ramakrishna. Apart from his intimate disciples, in this large group of fortunate people were most of the famous men and women of those days, kings, relatives of Sri Ramakrishna, famed devotees, Holy Mother's relatives and devotees, aspirants, spiritual leaders, pundits, school teachers, lecturers and professors, press people, artists, singers, instrumentalists, doctors, kavirads, lawyers, attorneys, engineers, landlords, business people, lady devotees, etc. At the same time, there were people from lower castes, sweepers, gardeners, servants, cooks, drunkards, goons, singers, midwives, servant ladies, women of ill fame, actors and actresses, and people from the weakest sections of society. We could mention only some of the numerous people with whom Sri Ramakrishna interacted. Sri Ramakrishna also visited many devotees' houses. Some took him themselves with great love. In some other cases, he himself went uninvited, just to shower his blessings on the souls there. Ramakrishna thus went to many devotees, scholars, and spiritual aspirants of himself and has discussed God with them all. This apart, many have come to him too. Apart from the houses of devotees, Sri Ramakrishna visited the Adi Brahmo Samaj, the Sadharan Brahmo Samaj, the Navavidhan Brahmo Samaj, Methodist Church of Dharmatala, Long's Church at Amherst Street, Michua Bazar, Gendutola Mosque, Jain Temple at Bado Bazar, Mullapara Mosque in Dakshineshwar, Chaitanya Sabha, Hari Sabha, different temples in and around Kolkata, Vaishnava circles, neo-devotional circles, landlords' houses, Barawari Tola, photo studio, theatre, zoo, Maidan, Fort William, circus, Asiatic Society, and so on. Sri Ramakrishna is the God of all places, all religions, all cults, all peoples. You are not my master alone, you are for all, said Holy Mother, who had understood her words then. But the glories of those words are slowly revealing themselves now. The living, fully awakened Sri Ramakrishna is everywhere now as the light divine, shining in his own spiritual lustre and power, especially in the pure and higher minds and intellects. The flood of Sri Ramakrishna's spirituality is inundating the world very quickly. All peoples of the earth will become blessed indeed, if only they bathe in this divine, blissful water of spirituality.